This is 1-6 equivalent ratios. Your homework tonight is page 63, number 1 through 8 even. Okay, so after today's lesson, you're going to be able to use ratios to solve real-world math problems and solve unit rate problems involving price and speed. Now remember, unit rate is when you have a number on the denominator that is 1. So it's just 1 unit. So it's like miles per hour or miles per 1 hour. Okay, miles per gallon, right? Price per pound. Okay. So let's look and see what equivalent ratios are. So go ahead and write this down. Equivalent ratios is ratios that share the same unit rate or increase at the same rate. So if the unit rates are the same, then you have an equivalent ratio. If they increase at the same rate, then the ratios are equivalent. So go ahead and write that down. Go ahead and pause it. Take it in, put it in your notebook. I'll give you a little bit of time. Okay, go ahead and make sure you have this written down. So let's determine if each pair of rates is equivalent. Explain your answer. So step 1, write each ratio as a rate in fraction form. So we're trying to see if these ratios, like 20 to 5 and 45 to 9, are equivalent. So we're going to actually write it as a rate to see if they are equivalent. So the first step is to write it in fraction form. So I'm going to write 20 miles for 5 hours. Okay? And then for my second one, I'm going to write 45 miles in 9 hours. Okay? The second step is to find the unit rate. So we've done this before, right? So that means that we need to get a 1 on the bottom or the denominator. So let's go ahead and do that for the top one. So I need to get, instead of 5 hours, I need to get to 1 hour. So how do I get from 5 hours to 1 hour? Are we going to multiply or are we going to divide? We're going to divide by 5. So if we divide by 5 on the bottom, what do you have to do on the top? Divide by 5. So what is 20 divided by 5? That's 4. And then we need to put our units, which is miles. Okay, let's look at the second one. So 45 miles for 9 hours. Let's find the unit rate. So I need to get 1 hour on the bottom. So to get from 9 to 1, I have to divide by 9. So whatever I do to the bottom, I'm going to have to do to the top. So I'm going to divide by 9. So 45 divided by 9 is 5. So I'm going to have 5 miles per hour. Okay, so now I need to write what this means to see if they are equivalent. So this is 4 miles per hour, and this is 5 miles per hour. Are the rates the same? No, they're not. Okay, so since the rates do not have, so you're going to write since the rates do not have the same unit rate, they are not equivalent. Okay, now I want you to go ahead and try this second example on your own. Go ahead and pause it and see if you can do it on your own. So the first step that you should have done is set up each ratio as a rate, okay? And then the second step is to create it into a unit rate. So I like to put price first on top per t-shirt, price per dollar. Usually you always put the money amount on the top. So I'm going to do $21 for 3 t-shirts. So that's step 1 for the first one. And then I'm going to write 5 t-shirts is on the bottom for $35. Okay. Now go ahead and find your unit rate. So that means I need to get 1 t-shirt on the bottom for both of them. Can you think of what you need to divide by? What do we divide by to get to here to here? If you said on the top one that you need to divide by 3, you are correct. So 3 divided by 3 is 1. And then I would have to divide by what number? Divide by 3 again. So 21 divided by 3 is 7. So $21 divided by 3 is $7. Okay, let's do the bottom one. How do I get from 5 to 1? I'm going to divide by, see if you can get it before I get it. If you said 5, you are correct. Okay, go make sure you are writing all of this down in your notes. Go ahead and divide the top by 5. So 5 divided by 5 is 1 t-shirt, and then 35 divided by 5 is $7 again. So as you can see, this is $7 per t-shirt, and this is $7 per t-shirt. So that means my unit rates are the same. So since, you're going to write, since the rates have the same unit rate, they are equivalent. Okay, let's go on to our next problem. Okay, so step 1 is write each ratio as a rate in the fraction form, and then step 2 is to determine if fractions are equivalent. So I have 3 free throws made out of 7 attempts, and then 9 free throws made out of 14 attempts. So this time I'm actually going to set them equal to each other. So I have 3 free throws out of 7 attempts. And I'm going to see if that equals 9 free throws out of 14 attempts. Okay, so how do I get from 7 to 14? Well, I have to multiply by 2. How do I get from 3 to 9? I have to multiply by 3. Now, since I am multiplying by a different number on the numerator and a different number on the denominator, these rates are not the same. So these fractions, right, are not equivalent. So what you're going to write is you're going to say, since the fractions are not equivalent, the ratios, or you can say then the ratios are not equivalent. Okay, go ahead ahead and see if you can do example 4 on your own, like I did on example 3, by setting them equal to each other. Go ahead and pause it. Try to do it on your own. It doesn't matter if you put the 6 DVDs and $90 on the top or bottom, but I always like the price on the top, so it doesn't really matter. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and do $90 for 6 DVDs. And does that equal $45 for 3 DVDs? Right? So she has 6 DVDs that cost $90. So 6 DVDs and $90. And then 3 DVDs cost $45. So 3 DVDs and $45. So now I need to see if they are equivalent. So how do I get from 6 DVDs to 3 DVDs? Well, am I going to multiply them or am I going to divide? Well, in this case, I'm dividing by 2. Well, let's see if I'm going to divide by 2 here. What is, how do I get from 90 to 45? Yeah, it's divided by 2. So, since the fractions here, I'm dividing by the same number, right? Since the fractions are equivalent, then that means the ratios are equivalent. So that's what we're going to write. So since the fractions are equivalent, then the ratios are equivalent. Okay, make sure that all of this page is written down in your notes. If you need to, go ahead and pause before you move on. All right, so this is the last one. So determine if each pair of rates is equivalent and explain your answer. So the first step that we need to do is write the ratio as a rate in fraction form, and then we're going to find the unit rate this time. Okay, so let's read the question. So Felisa read the first 60 pages of a book in 3 days. So that is your rate, 60 pages in 3 days. And then she read the last 90 pages in 6 days. So that's another rate. Are these reading rates equivalent? And then explain your reasoning. Okay, so the first step is to write each ratio as a rate. So I have 60 pages in 3 days. And then I'm going to write 90 pages in 6 days. So 90 pages in 6 days. So my second step is to find the unit rate. Okay, so that means I need to get, instead of 3 days, I need to get 1 day on the bottom. And then same thing over here, I need to get 1 day. Okay, so how do I get from 3 days to 1 day? Do I multiply? Divide? What do I divide by? So if you said divide by 3, you're correct. Am I done? No. What do I have to do? The same thing that I do on the bottom, I have to do on top. So I'm going to divide by 3. So 60 divided by 3 is 20. And then since my unit is pages, I need 20 pages. Okay? All right. So how do I get from 6 days to 1 day? Yes, you need to divide by 6. So then on the top, I need to divide by 6. So 90 divided by 6 is 15 pages. Okay, let's look at our rates. So I have 20 pages per 1 day and 15 pages the next part for 15 pages for 1 day. So are these reading rates equivalent? That's what I need to answer. So I'm going to say, no, they're not equivalent, right? And I need to explain my reasoning. So since the ratios do not have the same unit rate, they are not equivalent. So let's talk about Felicia. So Felicia's reading rate, or reading rates, more than one, right, are not equivalent. Okay, so go ahead and finish this. I have one more kind of assignment and one more challenge for you to try, and then you will be maybe working on a worksheet or some more practice on these types of questions. Go ahead and pause it if you need to. All right, so the next thing that I want you guys to try is an open middle problem. So I want you to go ahead and do this in your notebook if you like. Find equivalent ratios. So here's your directions. Use digits 1 to 9 to create 3 equivalent ratios. Okay? You can only each use the digits once. Okay? So you need to find equivalent ratios that are like this. So here's single digits, and then you have 2 digits here with to 1, and then 2 and 2. Okay? Go ahead and give that a try. Make sure that you only use 1 to 9. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So each number needs to be used. It's a pretty hard challenge, but I think you guys might be able to see what you get, and then maybe write down what you're thinking and what worked and what didn't work. And then your next one, so here's your next open middle problem that I want you to also try. Using each of the digits 0 through 6, so this time you can use a 0 only once, make 2 equivalent ratios, also known as proportions. So see if you can make a proportion and make sure that you don't have the same number in each of the boxes. Okay, so you can have a 1, a 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and a 0. So you have to use each number once. Okay, but those numbers won't work like that. So think about the numbers and what happens if you put bigger numbers on the bottom and smaller numbers on the top. Think about fractions just in general. Okay? All right, so that is, go ahead and try those in your notebook. Make sure you have all your notes written down, and go ahead and try those in your notebook, and when you're ready, you can get a worksheet from the teacher.